Well, welcome everyone to the virtual church. It's Saturday, which is the Sabbath, and that means it's time for us to begin our weekly voyage here into discovery in the Word of God and look over our shoulders at the week past to kind of glean from it lessons that we've learned, mistakes we've made, and look forward to another week in serving God, another week in becoming like God. Truly moving Godward. So thank you for joining us today. We do this every week, and if you don't have a church to call your own and a place to fellowship eyeball to eyeball with other like-minded people, why stop and visit us from time to time. And we're always here, always on the Sabbath. I should mention as a program note now that next week I will not be here. I will be in Spokane. We've got a granddaughter graduating from high school, and we're going over to celebrate that graduation. But we will be having our virtual church service as usual, without the video, without the live streaming. So it'll be on, and we'll be having as our guest speaker Owen Murphy from British Columbia. And I think he'll be joined with Noel Root from Oregon, and they'll have good things to say. Are we connected up there, Joanne? Did you? Okay. Just giving my wife her usual duties here to check to make sure that we're transcribing on the web. The last several weeks we've been coming through on the web, but it's not been recording on the video accumulator here at our processor. So I think we figured out that problem, and we're in the business of redoing our website. So we've learned a lot about things, and thanks to the help of Josh Deininger, we've also added many new videos to our YouTube page. We do have a page on YouTube, and you can access it right there on a website. It's not the screen you're looking at now, but down below that, you're instructed to click the playlist, and there you'll have a list of YouTube videos, which are previous virtual church programs that you can tune into. Well, before we begin today, we're going to ask God's blessing on us as we study His Word. Shall we pray? Our Lord, Father, most mighty one in heaven, You are the God that made the heavens and the earth, the birds, the fish, everything in the sea and the land and in the air, and all the cosmos and everything that is beautiful and wonderful You've made, and we thank You for it. We ask Your blessing now as we study Your Word, which is a great revelation of You, that we may know You better, the Great One, the Creator, to know Your love. And we ask Your blessing now as we study Your Word. Open our minds to be guided, open our minds to be even corrected if we have believed things wrongly. We ask all these things in Your blessing. In Jesus' name, amen. Excuse me. Well, I have here in the audience with us today Nathan Sharman, and he's our grandson. He just had an operation last week, and it went pretty well, didn't it, Nathan? Yeah, well, he thinks it went well, too. He has CP and cerebral palsy, and because of certain seizure problems and the rest. Let's say hi to everyone here. Nathan, hold on to him there, Joy. I'll widen out our screen a little bit here. There's Nathan with his bright shirt. See the camera up there, Nathan? Right up there next to the screen there. That's right. You can look and say hi to everybody. And he's got a nice, beautiful scar up here in his neck. Nice, clean one. And then he's got a little computer implanted on his left side of his chest, just like Grandpa does. So, and he's recovered, doing well, and we're very proud of him. And this, of course, is this video that he carries around with him, the Monster Jam, the monster trucks. He went down to see some of the championships there in Las Vegas. Well, thank you, Nathan. Well, the purpose of the operation, I should mention, and also solicit your prayers that it be successful. It's something new that modern science has devised to send forth electrical signals to certain nerves going up to the brain at certain times to maybe blunt these seizures until perhaps he grows out of them, or if he doesn't, at least modify them or in some ways blunt them. So we're very hopeful that's going to help. It's not been turned on yet, but it's all in place and healing. So I appreciate your prayers for our grandson, Nathan. He was really brave going to the hospital and the surgery and everything else. We're very proud of him. And also we have here in our studio audience some of the rest of the Sharman family, Lucas Sharman and Dave and Katharina. And I guess that's about it for right now. But I mentioned some things that are going on right now with our website. We moved over to a new World Press format, and it's going to make things a lot smoother, and it's going to work a whole lot better on the handheld devices and on the tablets and the rest, to be able to not lose material to the side, but able to scroll them down. It's designed for that. So that's a big upgrade, and we've got just a couple of dozen articles all queued up, and I've got a long list of pictures. There aren't many pictures on our website, but there are going to be a lot of them, not only of history of when the ACD was founded and some of the key people involved, but also some of the key people involved right now today. And so that'll be coming along as well. Joanne, on the top of the thing, right as you come out the door there, I've got a couple sheets of paper. Would you bring those out here to me? Thank you. We do have some Bibles there, folks, you can take advantage of, and we're going to be using them today. Well, the topic I've chosen is the two prongs of evolution. As we know, evolution operates in many ways in a culture that we have today, which is atheistic culture in a lot of respects, secular, humanistic, mechanistic, very materialistic, and so it's not very spiritual at all. In fact, there's a general war against Christianity, and I was pleased to see that one of the top tier of the Republican candidates of the 2,000 or so who have decided to run for president, Marco Rubio, senator from Florida, came right out boldly, and I congratulate him for that, saying that there is a war on Christianity, where soon they're going to be declaring people that believe in the Bible and speak of it and preach about it as engaging in hate speech. And then it'll be the duty of the government, the armed government with its guns and its stormtroopers and the rest, to shut down the hate speakers, which in this case would be Christians and Judeo-Christians. And that's a terrible thought that could happen. We know it's already happening at the hands of ISIS and a lot of other these anti-God, anti-Christian, anti-Jewish organizations, burning churches, killing people by the thousands. But here in America, we thought, hey, we're beyond all that now. But now with the change in political correctness, all happened in a space of a generation. Now what used to be good speech and uplifting speech is now considered hate speech. So that's on the horizon. And and yet we're the most knowledgeable people of all time, supposedly. Yeah, we know a lot. There's no end of knowledge going about. The current issue of First Things, which is a fine publication of kind of intellectual, biblical analysis and the rest, with maybe a Catholic bent to it. At least a lot of its writers are some fine articles in here, but one I'll draw your attention to mentions about capitalism, and then about knowledge itself. And there's one quote here I thought was very significant. That is, quote, although knowledge is infinite and impossible for us to complete. It is infinite. I mean, can we know everything about everything? No, we're just learning to scratch the surface on some things. Knowledge is infinite. You know what infinite means? Of course you do. It means without end. There's no end of it. There's no way you can get a handle around everything. You can never know everything. There's just too much. And which is part of the fun of living, discovering knowledge and learning knowledge, and also seeing how it might apply, how practically it could apply. But the quote goes on, although knowledge is infinite and impossible for us to complete, individual questions can have answers. Individual questions. You won't know everything, but you can ask a question, an individual question, and there can be found an answer for that. And that can end a pursuit for that answer to that question. What would be some of the key questions that you think a human would want to ask here on Earth? Well, you've read the three I always throw forth. Who is God? I mean, that should be the top question. Who made it all? If there's a God, who is he? What is he like? And the next big question is, who am I? Are there answers for that? Well, yes. Made in God's image, given rulership and domain, given a path to walk, a future, it's all laid out about who we are. If we can identify with that, our purpose for life. It isn't just to, eat so many calories and get old and die. Well, there's more to it than that. We've got 90 billion brain cells always reproducing and growing and everything else in our brain, and trillions in the body. What's the purpose of this magnificent creation? Well, it's to contemplate some of the knowledge out there, but to get answers to the most important questions that affect us. And that's, who is God? Who am I? And then, of course, the corollary to that, which is where most stumbling goes on, is how then shall I live? If God is God and I'm his creation, made in his image with a purpose in mind, how should I live? And here we get into the subject of the path, the way, Torah, the instruction of God on how to live. Now, do men normally like to be told how to live? Well, no, the kids only want to be told to wash the dishes, right? Humanly, we don't like to be told things. Later, we assume responsibility and see the value of doing various things. And, of course, when we have matured, well, then we do what needs to be done without being told, right? They say that's a definition of character, too. Doing the right thing when no one's looking, because it's part of you. So that's a maturing point. But how then shall I live? Well, the Bible, of course, is pretty well devoted to that subject, to how we as humans should live. It doesn't answer all the scientific questions we'd like answered. And we can explore those, and we should. It's a fantastic thing to do. Turn with me to Psalm 19. We're going to visit a few Psalms here. A reporter was from the Pacific Standard magazine, wrote an article, "Why Do Some Doctors Reject Evolution?" And why do they have such reservations about Darwin's account of evolution? These are doctors, medical men, with the scientific mind. Why would that be the case? And the focus of the article, as an example, was, of course, Dr. Ben Carson, a neurosurgeon, chief of neurosurgery at Johns Hopkins University for many years. By the way, when I had my back surgery, major surgery on my back in 1979, I think it was, the head of neurosurgery at Johns Hopkins at the time did my operation. A very fine old gentleman. He must have been, in the 70s at the time. Just a wonderful fella, and did apparently a great job. So my back has been good. But Dr. Carson said he just couldn't see it. It just doesn't make sense. And when he's dealing with the body and the most detailed and extremely designed parts of the body, like the human brain, and seeing the organization and the need for one thing to be there before another thing is there, and how it can ever possibly work together in an organization that is not just 5 pounds of gray matter, but there's something else in it, something they haven't been able to cut into the brain to find, which is the life, the soul, the personality of the being. So there's something mystical about it, something beautiful, but evolution doesn't explain how a brain could possibly develop and control all the nerve parts of the body and the growth and everything else. It doesn't explain that. In fact, it has they've been criticized, evolutionary science has been criticized for having a tremendous amount of white spaces. Yeah, they will just say, well, yeah, this evolved to this. Well, how did that happen? Well, there's big white space there. No evidence, no fossils, no nothing. It's just a statement. It evolved into this. The big white, they haven't explained the actual mechanics, the machinery of evolution working. All they can say is, well, it happened this way, and they draw pictures. And we're supposed to believe that. Well, that's more fantasy than in anything else. So, of course, many scientists don't believe in evolution. The assumption that they all do is nonsense. By the way, if you like some good articles on evolution and science, there's no better place than the Discovery Institute right here in Seattle. And they have a special wing of it entitled Evolution News and Views, where they have prominent scientists in the various fields write and speak on various subjects. And so just look it up, Evolution News and Views, the DiscoveryInstitute.org. And they have one here on understanding cardiovascular function and how it's beyond irreducible complexity. Well, it sounds like a lot of big words. But it really has to do with one aspect of keeping us alive, and that's keeping the fluid balance in your system, in your blood. How does that work? What's the chemistry involved in that? And it's absolutely fantastic. You can't imagine how you could ever design a machine to do it with all the receptors and all the chemistry and everything else involved that happens automatically in the body, sensing the need to control and level the fluids of the system and how it all works. It's just a marvel. Well, this is part of what we're reading here in the book of Psalms, Psalm 19, and we can begin reading in verse 1. The heavens declare the glory of God. Well, when you look up there, they do. And you've seen the pictures on some of these websites. Are beautiful. The Hubble telescope, Hubble looks out there and sees them, and they've been able to discern the colors that come from them. It's like a sea of jewels out there. And it's so vast, and they're discovering more and bigger telescopes. It goes further. They don't know, is it expanding the universe, or is it just so big we think it is expanding? We just haven't seen anywhere near the edge of it yet. It's so huge and beautiful and organized and powerful. How did it come to be? What keeps them there? Why is it the Earth is in one of the sweet spots of one of the galaxies, ideally for the formulation of carbon-based life as we know it? They haven't been found anywhere else. So people say, oh, there's got to be life everywhere. Well, fine, maybe. But there hasn't been any found yet. Just because you got a lot of planets and a lot of galaxies and all. In fact, they give you all the reasons why life couldn't exist there, because of the placement, the gravitational factors, the heat factor, the cold factors, the rotation factor, all sort of things. The absence of water, the absence of atmosphere, all these things. I mean, there's so many factors that need to be present even to allow the miracle of life to flourish. Well, the heavens declare the glory of God. Now, can you hear it? Well, they have these listening devices all the time. They're listening for Zeddy or whatever it is out there to be transferring some message to us. And, of course, all the sci-fi movies are based on this sort of thing. That there's life out there, and one of these days it's going to communicate to us. And so we have these ears out there to listen. Big listening telescopes and receptors and the rest to gather in. Maybe there's some super life out there trying to say something to us, and we need to listen. Well, we've spent tens of millions of dollars on all these. Well, so far, we haven't heard anything yet. But do they tell us a message, the creation? Absolutely, a powerful message. It speaks. It speaks loud, powerfully. But people don't listen. The skies proclaim the work of his hands. Day after day, they pour out speech. They just pour out speech if we're listening. Night after night, they display knowledge. You see the starry heavens. There's knowledge out there. It's quite a display, an array, mysterious, powerful, without end, beautiful. There is no speech or language where their voice is not heard. Everyone on the face of the earth can see the sky and see the heavens. And if they think about it, can see the glory of God therein. So this psalm goes on to show that part of the glory of God is His creation. And the other part of the glory of God, verse 7, the law of the Lord, or Yahweh, is perfect, reviving the soul. So there are two aspects here. Not only do we have the creation itself telling you a message that is here because of divine, intelligent design, but the law of God likewise is intelligent, is designed. It is the right path for human beings to walk. That's why it's called perfect. And the rest of the psalm goes on and talks about it. The statutes of the Lord are trustworthy. His laws are. They work. Making wise the simple. Now, when you're born, you don't know a thing. So what do you learn during life? Well, do you learn anything about the ways of God, the statutes, the laws, spiritual laws? Well, we learn physics. Those are physical laws. Those are inviolable, and they're worth learning. But are there not spiritual laws that govern our thinking and our conduct? Moral laws? Well, our society is built on those moral laws. And once we depart from them, well, then it's going to be San Andreas time all over. The earth is going to open up. We think a lot of people are going to die from, the great quake of a San Andreas type, which I guess the movie appears here this weekend. True, that'll happen. But it's nothing by comparison to the moral chasm that's going to destroy a whole nation. We need to be concerned about that. The precepts of Yahweh are right, verse 8, giving joy to the heart. Well, why aren't more people happy today? Well, this is the reason right here. The commands of the Lord are radiant, giving light to the eyes. They make things come together to make sense. They're logical. And of course, this is what we're to do. We're to observe the heavens and use our reason and logic to conclude that this is done by a beautiful design. The fear of the Lord is pure, enduring forever. That means respect, the reverence, the adoration. It's more precious than gold, much more than pure gold, sweeter than honey, the honey from the comb. By them your servant is warned, in keeping them there is great reward. Yeah, this is where the thinking needs to be with humankind, but it's not. Psalm 24, just go forth a couple of pages here. The Psalms is the most theological Bible book in the whole Bible, and it spends an awful lot of time discovering and waxing poetically and colorfully and beautifully about God and His creation, answering that first question, who is God? And then, as we saw in the last Psalm, who am I? How should I live? Well, we live by His way, His Torah, His laws. Psalm 24. The earth is Yahweh's and everything in it, the world and all who live in it, everything. For He founded it upon the seas and established it upon the waters. You know, who is it that made the dry land appear and gave it function? Well, this is all the doing of creating a creative God. Who may ascend the hill of the Lord? He likens this earth and His creation like a temple. And He wants us to join Him in it. It's His earth. That's what the Garden of Eden represented. Who may stand in His holy place? So how are we going to get from here to there to fulfill our purpose to the Maker of all things? Well, he who has clean hands and a pure heart. That's the one. They're the only ones. How to get your hands clean? You wash them. How to get your heart pure? You set it in the right direction, and you fill it with good thoughts rather than selfish, evil thoughts. The one who does not lift up his soul to an idol. Of course, evolution is an idol. Rather than believing in the true God, they believe in an accident. They see all this beauty and say it's accidental. It just happened by random. Which is, how idiotic is that? I can look at my watch here, and I don't have a big fancy watch here. What is it? It's a Citizen. And it's one of these watches that has a photo cell in it, receptor that takes light from light shining on me an hour of sunlight and converts it into a little battery here. It runs in the watch. It's nice. You don't have to put a battery in it. It's not new technology. It's been around for a while, but it's been perfected and refined and miniaturized and made very, very functional. And, of course, it's got numbers on it. It's got all sort of things that come together and work, whether it be the band or anything else. It's designed for a human wrist, a human eye, and it keeps a certain time that is in order of the universe. And now, if I could look at that and say, "Hey, that's an accident," that just sort of evolved on its own. It grew out of a chunk of iron in a rock somewhere. Well, you look at me and you say, "Well, you better give up those marijuana cigarettes." I hear, what's the Beatle name? Paul McCartney. He was just saying that people should give up on pot. He who was a big pot smoker. But, he's older now. He's smarter. So people should give up on it. Well, the full effects of the pot smoking is just being realized, but it's an experiment people make. Now we look at something like this, our watch, and we say that's design. How can we look at the universe and the human body or a flower and say it's an accident? And the beauty. Why does it need beauty? Well, lift up his soul to an idol and swear by what is false. Oh yeah, some schools now, they won't even let creationism be taught side by side with evolution. No choice, only one. In this school you learn one thing. It's a propaganda mill. It's an indoctrination mill. That's what colleges have turned into for a large part. Schools from kindergarten on up. You know, why is it all of a sudden young people are saying, oh, I think it's wonderful that, two men marry, two women marry, God should be fair and that's equal and blah, blah, blah. Well, that's what they've heard from kindergarten in school. They've been brainwashed with that type of thinking. So it's natural now when you take a poll of these millennials that a lot of them would say, about half of them say, well, yeah, I think about half people out there are homosexual anyway. Well, no, they're not. They're still 2% or less. But because it's so everywhere and been so pushed, they think a falsehood. They believe a falsehood. And, of course, policies made on the basis of falsehoods and lies. Now, they swear by what is false. And a lot of people say, well, they swear by evolution. In other words, they're declaring there is no God. And if there's no God, everything's permissible. No rules then. If you want to have 3 wives and 2 donkeys as your love mates, that's fine. What's the matter with that? Because they do it over there in some of the Arab worlds. Well, who has a pure heart and clean hands and does not worship idols or swear by lies will receive a blessing from God. And that's, of course, what God is saying. And then he says, then you're going to be welcome into the kingdom. Lift up your heads, O you gates, verse 7, you ancient doors, for the King of glory may come in. Well, who is this King of glory? Have you heard the song? I think it's beautiful. It comes right out of Psalm 24. Who is this King of glory? The Lord strong and mighty, Lord mighty in battle. Lift up your hands, O you gates. Lift them up, you ancient doors, that the King of glory may come in. Open up. Who is he, this King of glory? The Lord Almighty is the King of glory. Yeah, he's going to reign, and he's going to come in great power, and the whole Bible portrays that the future time. He made the earth, and he's going to come and claim it as his own. Well, moving ahead in Psalm 97 now. Psalm 97. And it seems like every other psalm, the psalmist is talking about God the Creator. He reigns. This is his earth. The Lord reigns. Let the earth be glad. Let the distant shores rejoice. And then he speaks about how God is going to come in great power, as he has in times past, when he delivered a whole nation, opened up the sea, and fire goes forth before him and consumes his foes on every side. His lightning lights up the world. The earth sees and trembles. The mountains melt like wax before the Lord of all the earth. The heavens proclaim his righteousness, and all the peoples see his glory. And verse 10, let those who love Yahweh hate evil, for he guards the life of his faithful. And in verse 6, it talks about the moral order. The heavens proclaim his righteousness. That is the moral order. And the moral order is under attack right now in our culture. Seriously under attack. Sodom was one such attack where the moral order that God had set was under attack. So what did God do? Well, he did something about it. And to show people for all times what he thinks of that. And it wasn't a pretty thing at all, was it? His reign is founded on righteousness. So we think God is just ambivalent about what's going on down here below? Not in the slightest. He's concerned. He sees everything. Now, in our modern culture, instead of seeing the beauty and wonders of what God has made and giving him credit and praise and worship, the secular left, the anti-creationists, the evolutionists, and the rest say it was just all accidental. No intelligence involved, no God, undirected forces randomly coming together over an immense amount of time made all these things we see that are so beautiful. And of course, that's all the white space of evolution. No filling in the blanks. Just a declaration. Well, why does it go down so well? Well, because it's sugar-coated. It's because people want to hear it. If there's no God, then there are no rules. And if there are no rules, I can do what I want without accountability. Now, on the surface of the thinking, that's how people process their justification for sin and rebellion. But is there something down deep in their conscience that they know better? Well, I think there is. The Bible indicates there is. That they're only fooling themselves. They're lying to themselves. And sooner or later, they're going to have to admit that. Well, same with the moral order. Rather than saying the beauty of marriage, for instance, the beauty of righteousness, of telling the truth, of being honest, loving your neighbor as yourself, and exploring those things with the same diligence and enthusiasm that we would, ferret out all the details of the knowledge of the physical order. If we would do the same with the spiritual laws and see how that they are good, which of course the Bible does, it talks about them, how they're righteous, how they prolong life, how they bring forth joy. And what are they? Are they that bad? Well, no, they're not. But man wants to change the moral order. If there's no God, why are we to assume that the family is something that should be here? This is reasoning. The family, marriage, that's an artifact. That's a religious artifact, or it's a historical artifact or something. We're not bound by that. We're smarter than that. We can improve on that. It's always been the arrogance. And of course, behind it, there's a certain amount of lust, too. They want to do what they want to do without being accountable. And the hard, heavy lifting is to find out the truth and build something that's beautiful and wonderful. It's a whole lot easier to tear down and experiment and chase after lust than it is to build something beautiful. And that's what we're seeing in our culture right now, is a San Andreas type of chasm is beginning to open up in our culture. It's all happened so rapidly, it's just hard to believe. But when people think there's no God, well, there's no intelligence behind the logic of marriage, is there? So they say. And so what's the next stage with that? Well, marriage is just an accident. It's a religious thing. You can make of it what you want. After all, if there is no God, who are we accountable to? I remember years ago, it was kind of the thing that science could improve on anything, that we're just animals anyway, we're just evolutionary animals. So why can't we improve? And so, rather than women nursing their babies. That wasn't scientific. That wasn't the way to go. We needed to be more modern and advanced. So they developed formulas and all sort of things and get kids on bottles right from the get-go and tell women, you don't need to nurse it. That's just sort of and so this went on for quite a while. And, of course, having babies in the hospitals, walling off the family from it, making it kind of a surgical, almost like a sickness. And so all of a sudden the whole thing of birth and nurturing of children was now going to be taken over by the cold, stark hand of science. It was an experiment, right? A social experiment, like a lot of experiments today, like the whole sexual revolution experiment. And is there a result? Yeah, well, there's a result. And fortunately, they began to find out, you know what? It didn't work so well. That not only is a mother's milk better for the baby, it comes at the right temperature, already. It has elements in it that help the immune system come together. It's always readily available when the baby needs it, at the comfort and at the heartbeat of the mother. And whereas the formulas don't provide those sort of things. Of course, was there money in formulas? Oh, yeah. Hundreds of millions of dollars, a whole new industry was created to take care of baby formulas. And so were there sometimes greedy motives behind it? Yeah. Well, they kind of learned the hard way, through a lot of diseases, a lot of troubles, and everything else that, normally in 90-some% of the cases, mother's milk is always best. The natural way is best. Was there some intelligence or engineering that went into this thing of having a baby and nursing it? Well, common sense would tell you that. And only a fool would say that something so marvelously, doesn't count, that we can change it and improve on it. But this is exactly what man is doing now with this whole moral order. An experiment in social evolution. Not only is evolution dealing with the creation and telling us a lie about it, but it's also involving itself in the moral, spiritual evolution. And same thing. It's an accidental thing. Random. We can decide better. So are the elites in government justified in telling us what is hate speech and what is good speech, what we're to tolerate and what is okay, and how we should now make laws to bless our new desires, our new discoveries, that homosexuality is just equal with, and homosexual marriage should be on a par with heterosexual marriage. That's all fine. We're going to make laws. Once you make a law, those who don't agree with that are now suspect for going against the law. Well, this is what we see going on now. It's being converted through courts, through propaganda, through a whole process that started decades ago. But it's still part of the human spirit. Nothing new in that sense. Well, here in Romans 1, again, I think this San Andreas metaphor is a good one. And it's a scary business. I've been in earthquakes, and nothing like that, but enough to really scare you. Some earthquakes have been so big and so powerful, people standing up are just slapped down to the ground just like that, just like this phone fell on the ground. And because the ground just moves so quickly. And some of you have been crushed from the slapping down from a violent earthquake. Over in Nepal right now, I just had a report here. I was going to read it from one of the gentlemen. I don't see, I've got it here handy here, but who was in Nepal. He's spoken at some of the One God seminars that I've organized, Dr. Fund. And he goes over to India and Nepal. He must be 90 years of age now. But he has a lot of connections over there, teaches people the Bible. And he's also competent in lecturing on Greek and many of the other biblical languages. So very fine man. He goes over on a shoestring to carry on that Christian ministry. And he's in contact with some of his friends there in Nepal, a small Christian group of about 18 or 20 or so people that he had been teaching in times past. They've all had their homes destroyed, lost everything in their homes, been out in the street trying to survive, and they've had a hard time getting aid because the Hindi aid workers put the Christians at the low priority level of getting any kind of help. And it's so poorly managed with corruption and the rest. A lot of supplies flowing in are rotting on the tarmac. It's just a terrible situation. And he asks for prayers for the Christians there in Nepal, which we certainly should be praying for them, as they have a special need at this time. But these are the realities of our world. Here in the book of Romans, earthquakes are powerful things, and God's going to bring some here in the end days. But the spiritual earthquake, to use that parallel, is opening up a chasm that's going to destroy a whole lot more people than any earthquake on the surface. Paul writes about the wrath of God, Romans 1. I kind of hate this passage. In a sense, it's kind of gruesome, truthful, but it's kind of hard to read. The wrath of God is being revealed from heaven against all the ungodliness and wickedness of men who suppress the truth by their wickedness. Yeah, there's an active suppression of truth that's going on. If you want to get truth, it's just not going to fly in your window and hit you up the side of the head. It's being suppressed. You have to search it out, seek it, seek truth. And Jesus said plainly, God's word is truth. But men suppress the truth by their wickedness. They do it for a reason. They don't want the truth to be known. And, of course, when it comes to even whatever they're pushing, whether it be homosexual marriage now, they push it. They're just as fine as other marriages, and adopting children, they do just as fine. No, they don't. Does the evidence show that? No. What do they do with the evidence that doesn't show that? They suppress it. And sure enough, they do. By their wickedness. Since what may be known about God is plain to them, because God has made it plain to them. If they got eyes, they can look up and see the heavens. They can see the creation all around them. That's what he says in verse 20, the next verse. For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that men are without excuse. Any kind of rational observation and reason coupled with that observation will conclude that a powerful, intelligent creator made these things. You may not know his name, but the conclusion would have to be that. So he says they're without excuse to not knowing that, yes, there is a divine power, a great power. For although they knew God, there was a time in history where their ancestors knew God. And maybe They did too. They neither glorified him as God, nor gave thanks to him, but their thinking became futile, and foolish hearts were darkened. You know, you turn away from the path of God, people turn into a dark place. You hear movie stars talk about their lives where they got into drugs and sex and other kind of things. They said, well, I got into a dark period of my life. They talk about the misery it caused and the rest. This dark period. So it's a good metaphor for it. They rejected the light and chose the darkness. And their foolish hearts were darkened. Yeah, there's a lot of fools there. Although they claim to be wise, yeah, they could put as many PhDs after their name as they like. They can call themselves elites. They could puff around, get big positions in government, and exchange the glory of the immortal God for images. Yeah, for the creation, made to look like mortal man and birds and animals and reptiles. They begin to fixate on the creation itself and worship it in one sense or another. You know, the Mother Earth, this natural world, the whole environmental world is based on this very thing here. We've got to save the animals and all this. This is our salvation, rather than the God who made them. No, they think this is the new righteousness. These are the ones they're going to bow down before, as it were, and risk their lives for, to save, not the God who made them and designed them. Therefore, because of this whole change of mind, this new dynamic that's taken place in people's mind, new philosophy, new paradigm, how to view the world. This is the new view. You can't blame the newer generation entirely, because what have they known? You know, what do the millennials know since they were born? And when we were born, we didn't know anything. We just learned things as we go along. Nowadays, those coming up, what do they learn? Well, they didn't learn the things that people 40, 50 years ago learned, even about the history of their own country. That's ignored now. So they learn other things, which now informs their worldview. And so, based on that worldview, they make decisions and they vote for people. That's why we're in the mess we're in, frankly. That's why the world's on fire. Why America's retreating. Why we're in moral decay, financial decay. Therefore, God gave them over to the sinful desires of their hearts, to sexual impurity, for the degrading of their bodies with one another. It becomes all bodies. A lot of degrading stuff. This is pretty well the fare of television and movies and the rest. Seeing how far you can push it. What new things you can do. They exchanged the truth of God for a lie. Yeah, the truth that He's the Creator. And He provides us a righteous moral order by which to live. We call that a lie. We say He's not involved. He's not around. We can do what we want. We know better. And worshipped and served created things. Yeah, a totally materialistic viewpoint. Rather than the Creator, who is forever praised. Amen. And then, sadly, it gets a little bit more specific. Because of this, God gave them over to shameful lust. Gave them over means turn them loose, all right? If this is the way you want to go, if you want to eat that soup, it's going to make you sick. Have at it. I've told you it's not good to eat. But you want to eat it? Eat it. It's yours to eat. So God gave them over to their shameful lusts. Even their women exchanged natural relations for unnatural ones. He's talking sex here. This is Paul 2,000 years ago. Human nature tends to reflex along a certain downward path. In the same way, men also abandon natural relations with women. Natural. Well, that's how babies come. That's how civilization comes. That's how families are formed. Can two men have babies? No. Can two women have babies? No. It's not natural. How do you call that? Marriage. Marriage is when two different come together and they marry together. And out of that comes forth a fruit, a family, a good thing, life itself. In the same way, men also abandoned natural relations with women and were inflamed with lust for one another. Now, is he talking about our time here or not? Yet, will we label things for what it is? No. Men committed indecent acts with other men. Now, this would be hate speech, right? By a lot of our politically correct idiots today. They call that an indecent act. Well, gee, you religious bigot, you. How can you say that is an indecent act? Yeah. How can you say practicing buggery is an indecent act? Oh, no, we talk about a gay and about men loving one another. All these nice things. It's like abortion. You don't talk about killing a life. No, it's a woman's choice. Oh, what a wonderful thing. A gayness, what a wonderful thing. A love in marriage, what a wonderful thing. Well, Paul calls it an indecent act. Look up the words. It's about the opposite of giving life, or the elimination part of the body. Where the offal goes out. We want to call somebody a bad name, we call them an a-hole. You know what I'm talking about. This now is the method, the coming together, the coitus of homosexuality is through the foulness of the body organs. Just about the opposite. Do you think Paul's got a right to call some things indecent? Yeah, it's just the opposite. Does that produce life? No. Produce a lot of diseases, yeah. Not life. Indecent acts with other men, and receive in themselves the due penalty for their perversion. Oh boy, there's another hate speech. We get that Apostle Paul, and we put him in jail. Because he's talking hate speech here. He's talking about nice, loving, homosexuals and all that kind of stuff, and they ought to be accepting and tolerant and free and fair and all this kind of stuff. See how the moral order has become totally perverse through evolution? The idea that anything goes. Well, further, since they did not think it worthwhile to retain the knowledge of God, he gave them over to a depraved mind. Just let them go into their depravity. To do what ought not to be done. Ought not to be done. Then he lists all the other wickedness that comes from it, which is kind of like an indictment of our society. You wonder, well, why do people do these things? Why are leaders so depraved and dumb and doing the exact wrong thing, it seems, in so many cases? Well, here's your answer, right here. It follows through the two prongs of evolution. Both deny God as the maker of things and deny God's law as the way we should live. And what do we have as a result? Well, we have a very dangerous situation. And it's going to be changed, of course. And it's going to, the bright light of day and the restitution of all things and the pureness of a great God is going to come and put an end to it all. But in the meanwhile, we may have to just wait, like Lot at the gates of Sodom, and lament and try to keep people out from coming into that wretched city. And finally God decides enough is enough. Well, soon that day will be coming when God will decide enough is enough. But, of course, those of you who are believers have already acknowledged God as the maker and creator. And then secondly, you've accepted his moral order as the way in which to live, and are going to be blessed as a result, and have been. And we can thank God for that revelation. Well, before I say goodbye, I should mention one article here that was in the news here that I did not like reading about, but they come, and it's particularly distressing for a lot of the young people because they don't have much experience in that. This new trend toward the Charlie challenge, as teens try to summon a demon. Maybe you've seen it or heard about it on the news, and it's creating quite a commotion on Twitter, and whatever happens now gets dispersed very widely, and you get a lot of kids with no background or anything else. Oh, this is cute, and they want to try it. And it's a challenge, and it's gone viral across the social media. It involves putting two pencils or pens together on a piece of paper in the shape of a cross. The words yes and no are written in boxes outlined by the pencils. And then the participants say, "Charlie, Charlie, are you here?" And that apparently is the name of this demon they're summoning up. And apparently this demon is a historical one having to do with an Oriental demon, as I recall, a spirit. And they have, some videos of some of these people doing that. Of course, everybody's got a phone now, so they're doing this game, and they say it, and the pencil turns like this here, and the girl will scream and run, and all. It's like a little cheap Ouija board, which is kind of an opening up to the spirits. And some of the top exorcists in the Catholic, he's a Mexican demon, I guess, the Charlie, have warned against it. It's not a simple game, they say. It's inviting demons in the presence of demons, calling on spirits into your life. Now, not that you're going to become possessed by them, which, of course, is always a possibility, but you're allowing demons to enter into your association, into your life, and generally that means nothing but trouble. And they tend to stay around for a while, and people are mesmerized by this. And, of course, in our culture, it seems like every movie out there now, some fantasy of superpowers of this, superpowers of that, miracles here, and potions, and all sort of stuff. So people are geared to this world of the spirit, But God's not involved in it. That part's left out. So it's natural a lot of kids would have an interest. Oh, let's try that. And some have, to their great fear and shock. But I would certainly want our people who have children and grandchildren to be aware of that, and let people let the kids know that that's serious business. There is evil out there. There is evil in this world that we should avoid it, and cling to that which is good. And there's so much good. Looking at my son-in-law Dave here, he gave us some tomato plants here the other day, and there was an interesting article on this website on evolution about plants, and about the photo powers of the plant, how they absorb light and convert it. Darwin writes about it, but he left as a mystery, as a question, how it works. And it is still somewhat of a mystery. We've been able to detect the photoreceptors and the elements of chemicals that needed to be there to do it, and how it worked on a time, and all these things to put it together to actually take energy from the sun, and every seed has its own kind of time rhythm to it, a clock, and convert it into usable fruit, usable foliage. And how does that work? Well, could you do it? It's amazing. When you get down to the detail in the chemistry, you just think, this is, unbelievable. So they've been able to understand the parts of it, but still why and how, I don't know. And why a little seed, take a little seed out and you put it down there and give it some water and a little soil. Next thing you know, it replicates where it came from. If it's a tomato, it replicates a tomato plant with new tomatoes, new seeds. That's a miraculous thing when you think about it. Anybody that does any gardening or farmer, you think about the power that's taking place in this. And these are things that you look at and you just, thank God. You glorify God for His power that He's able to do these things. And so, how is it we worship God? Well, we worship Him as Creator and as our Deliverer and as the one who shows us the way. Well, thanks for tuning in today, folks. And I mentioned I will be going here next week, but we will be having a virtual church on the phone only. No live streaming, just next week. But there will be a live service on the phone. So please tune in and hear Dr. Noel Rood. I don't like being called doctor, but, PhD.
That's right.
Oh, are you on the line, for crying out loud? And Owen Murphy, yeah, I thought I'd slip that in there without you hearing. Say, Noel, since you're on the line here, and I did not know that, do you have any more wise comments to give us here on our message today?
Well, as you were going there, I was remembering Ruth Graham several years back, couple of decades, whatever, who said, my oh my, if God doesn't do something pretty quick, He's going to have to apologize to Sodom.
Good point.
And so, how long will He let this go? And then as you were talking about photosynthesis there, well, the war against God is on 1,000 fronts. The war against carbon, for example. We're carbon-based life forms. And unless there's carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, those tomatoes cannot produce the food. They cannot produce the sugar through photosynthesis. So greenhouses even put extra pump carbon into them sometimes to make things grow. And if there's a designer there, maybe he put that carbon in the earth for us to burn. It's the most marvelous fuel, the petroleum. There's nothing like it. A gallon of gas has awesome explosive power, and yet it's pretty safe to have in a container. And so there's a war against that. We want to stop that. I don't have any great thoughts, but I thought it was wonderful how Paul traces the corruption, the same kind of thing we're seeing coming right back to what the same thing as the evolution. It's at the root of where this nation is going. Also, just wandering here, an interesting chapter that kind of takes the same approach there is in the Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 13. It goes through this same kind of a thing, how men did not acknowledge the work master, and they worshipped instead the nature, the fire and the wind and so on. And anybody have an apocrypha, you can kind of look at that. It's thought that Paul is even thinking of some of that. So that's not any great thoughts, but just some random comments.
Well, thanks, Noel. Those are good thoughts, and yeah, there's so much can be said. You mentioned about carbon and how it's a war against carbon emissions and all this. It's really a war against life itself. We are, like you say, carbon based, and they say, oh, we got to get rid of oil, and that's the evil thing, and we got all these other great solutions somewhere hanging out there we need to move toward. Well, no, we really don't have all these great solutions out there. Some are some ancillary power sources here, a little wind here maybe, and a little solar there and all, but not that much really. It's pretty hard to beat the carbon material. Say, well, that's fossil fuels. I don't believe that. I really don't. Maybe I'm a weirdo on that, but when you realize how many billions and billions and billions of barrels of oil have been brought out, and coal by the untold millions and billions of tons, and all packed on down there, and all that was from some dinosaurs, dying in the past, fossils. It's really stretches the mind, but the idea being, of course, these are non-renewable. Oh yeah, we're running out, and if you're running out, well, you need the government to save us, and so we let the government tax the stuffings out of us to save us. And yet, I think the earth makes oil. The earth makes coal. It's a carbon-making machine. It's heat, energy, pressure, and it's got the resources there, the materials to build carbon. And so I don't think we're in danger of running out of any of that. They say we got enough natural gas, for instance, a very fine form of carbon fuel, to last for several hundred years, and coal for several hundred years. And at the current rate of oil discovery, we got enough there to last us for centuries as well. So what's the big push? We immediately got to save the earth, this global warming fantasy, which they've retermed climate change. Well, that's a silly business. Climate's always changing. They dig ice cores out of anywhere they want in the poles, and they find that, the climate's been changing right along. That's part of the earth that's always changing. Hot periods, cold periods, glacial periods, warming periods, flooding periods. That's the history of the world before anybody was driving a car. But no, let's not be too logical about this, because we got to have the government involved, and they're going to save us. And so, for little kids are propagandized early on in school about the scarcity of everything, and God somehow has made us a real scarce world. We got to preserve all those things. The only way to do that is to have government, the laws to do it, which means you got to conform to those laws. We get control of your life, and so on. Is really what's happening, and it's a suppressing of the truth for the purposes of power, whether it's done on the economic scene or on the moral area or the very spiritual worship of God. It's all the same thing. Well, Noel, if I knew you were going to be tuning in here, I would have brought you on a little quicker here with your comments, but I didn't know that you were lurking in the background, sneaking around there, just listening.
Yeah.
So, any kind of final comments?
Oh, maybe just a wild thing of interest. The atomic number of carbon is 6, and God associates Adam with the 6th day, the number of man. Probably nothing in that, but study carbon. You study, all of the elements. Each element has a fairly fairly small, finite number of possible chemical compounds. Carbon, there's a whole separate branch of chemistry called organic chemistry, and it's based on carbon, and the number of compounds that can be made with carbon are infinite. And so that's interesting. And so that it is carbon that is the basis of the fuel, the sugars in us,